It's the new season, and it's time to break down the Central Division, of course, specifically the Avalanche. Joining me to break down this preview with the Avalanche and see who could be maybe a breakout player for them is Adrian Dater. He's an editor and writer covering the Colorado Avalanche for many years, currently at Colorado Now. You can reach him on Twitter at @ADater. Welcome to the show, Adrian.
Hey, thanks for having me, bud.
Yes. So, of course, experts are going to be joining me in all the first two episodes, figuring out what could be happening within their divisional alignment and their team specifically, of course. When we go to the Avs, they're well favored to be atop of the Central across the board. The Avs are roughly like a negative 220 on betting odds, which means if they don't win the division, it's a big fail. Adrian, what makes this team equal to or even better than the shortened year last year? It kind of baffles me that they are considered that high.
Yeah, I think I'm a little surprised too. They're so high with the sports books. I mean, they're the favorite to win the Stanley Cup, along with at the sports books. I don't know if they're a better team or not. I think they're going to be a better team in goal than they were last year. Even though they had a Vezina Trophy finalist, I know that sounds weird, but they didn't have very good backup goalie, that's for sure. And I think they'll be better 1-2 punch this year with Darcy Kemper, and when he comes back from injury, Pavel Francouz, he probably will miss the first few games of the season at least. But I don't think they're as good up front, though, as they were. They lost Brandon Saad and Jonas Donskoy to other teams, and I think some serious question marks as to whether the guys they have now will be adequate replacements for them. So pretty hard to say if they're better or not. I do think they're a little bit better defensively with the addition of Eric Johnson back from injury, but it could be a little harder for them to score goals this year, and that's reason to worry. But every team's got a little chink in their armor somewhere, so we'll see what Colorado does here to start the season.
You mentioned that you believe their goaltending is better even with Grubauer leaving, and he was we saw him have a stellar season last year, and he goes off to the Kraken, signing a big contract there. What makes you believe that new tandem, as well specifically Francouz being the 1 and 2, he's never really shown, especially in those playoff games, that he can be at least a very solid number 2, in my opinion, at least.
Well, he was solid in the regular season a couple of years ago, that's for sure. He had a real good record. He got hurt in the playoffs, though, and I think that affected him a lot. And, he's been hurt ever since. Guy cannot stay healthy since. So that's a worry, of course. But, I'm just going based on what the team is saying when he'll be back. I think he'll be still a good backup. They had Hunter Miska and Jonas Johansson and Devin Dubnyk as backups last year. None of them, even though Johansson's numbers were good, pretty good on the surface, I think he played against a lot of mediocre teams in that stint. And, the Avs kind of I think they played as many guys back as they could when he was in the lineup. And I'm not trying to dunk on the kid, but he's still got a lot to prove to me anyway. So I think Darcy Kemper is, good goalie. He's had a higher save percentage than Philip Grubauer has overall the last 3 years. He's, he had a pretty mediocre team in front of him. He won a gold medal with Canada in the World Championships this summer. And, I think he's going to have a real good year. And I think he's just as good or better than Philip Grubauer. So that's why I think they're a little bit better in net.
You also mentioned you believe the defense is better. They lost Ryan Graves, though. He seemed like a stalwart in the back end to me. Eric Johnson is going to be equal to or better, you believe?
Well, I don't know if I put him as Graves' replacement necessarily. I think you can argue that they have kind of a hybrid of guys who are going to replace Graves. Johnson is there. Veterans Ryan Murray and Jack Johnson have made the club. So I was a big Ryan Graves fan. I was probably his biggest defender in the media here in Denver.
Same here.
And so I think it is a loss, but they had to lose someone. It was a tough call. There were some times in this past season where Graves did falter a little bit. So he wasn't as good as he was the year before when he was a plus 40. It's tough. I'm not saying that they're better necessarily, but I do think that they lost Ryan Graves. But okay, Bo Byram too is also back with the team, and I think when you add him in as well, I mean he's probably the real replacement for Graves. Bo Byram, and he's a lottery pick, so I think they're going to be okay on defense.
Bo Bynum, he looked pretty good when we saw him there in the post-season action there. Do you think he's ready at least to fill in maybe a top 4 role? I think some people are almost penciling him in there.
Yeah, I think he is going to be a top 4 guy. I think the Murray and Johnson are going to be, or Jack Johnson are going to be the bottom 2. That's what they were paired together actually in practice today, those two. So I expect them, Murray and Jack Johnson, to be the number 5, 6. I expect Makar with Gerard, and I expect Eric Johnson with Bo Byram. So I'll take my chances with that top 6. I think it's a pretty good top 6. I know Jack Johnson's got some haters out there. And Ryan Murray, to me, is a little long in the tooth, too. But, as far as 5 and 6 D-men go, I think, you could do a lot worse than those two. They're veteran guys. They'll know how to play pretty well. They're not going to play tons of minutes, probably. And but Byram, he's still just a kid. And I'm sure there's going to be a little rust and adjustment again, getting back into the full swing of things. But he had a pretty good preseason, so so far so good.
What would a landslide division win mean for the Avalanche if they still can't get past maybe the second round in the playoffs?
Well, it obviously won't be good. They've lost in the second round 3 years in a row. So this, like it or not, this is it's going to be a storyline no matter what when the playoffs start. And this is assuming they make the playoffs. It's going to be a storyline, and it's up to them to get rid of that storyline. They have a lot of pressure on them to at least get to a conference final again. Finally, it's been since 2002 since that's happened. I mean, it's 19 years since the Colorado Avalanche were in a conference final. That would have sounded laughable back in the late 90s and mid 90s, but in the early 2000s. But that's the fact. It's a tough league, man. It's I can't sit here and say that the Avalanche should be overwhelming favorites at anything, really, because it's just such a tough league. Mm-hmm. Injuries can happen. All kinds of awful things can happen. And we still don't know if they're a better team or not based on their personnel. So a long time to go before we start worrying about that probably. But when the playoffs do start, and if they're in it, there's somebody's going to write a story about how they haven't won in the playoffs second round in the last 3 years.
Yeah. If we all look at the negatives and they do not get past that second round, would it potentially mean they're going to have to make some big moves? And if so, who could get moved?
No, I don't think they'd make any big moves with their core guys. I don't think you'd see any of the top line guys leave. I don't think you'd see Cale Makar leave or any Bo Byram, anybody like that. If they don't make the conference finals, coach may lose his job. That's just a fact. This will be his 6th year of Jared Bednar. Mm-hmm. still recuperating from COVID, by the way. I don't think he'll be on the bench Wednesday night. Yeah, I mean, big changes. Well, there's only so much you can do, really. I'm sure they would move somebody. If they don't make the conference finals, I expect, this probably isn't Adrian Kadri's last year with the team either way. Maybe not. I think he's still a good player, but yeah, they're going to have to sign Nathan McKinnon starting, basically next season. He can re-sign extension anyway. So probably not going to have a ton of cap room. Mm-hmm. And, what are you going to do? Look around for bargains. You look for occasional free agent. Maybe you make a decent sized trade, but it's hard to just envision them dealing off a core player in some kind of blockbuster move. I mean, don't forget, this team is still young, pretty much, and if they don't win it this year, maybe they'll win it next year. I mean, listen, it's not all or nothing every single time in life. And I know they have some pressure on them, but so does 31 other teams. So let's just let it play out.
You mentioned Nazem Kadri there. They're tight against the cap, especially with the flat cap and because of COVID and everything. They got to sign McKinnon in the future. How much space do they even have to keep Kadri? Is there almost nothing? He's going to possibly want some kind of raise because his contract actually looks pretty good for what he's done in season, at least.
Well, I don't think he'll get more than he's making now. I would be surprised. I mean, he's going to be 33 years old next year, or even maybe a little older. I double check, but something like that. Making $4.5 million, maybe he'll get a free agent deal more than that, but I would sort of doubt it at that age. I like him. I think he should stay. Losing the second line centers is not a small thing. So, but we don't even know how he's going to play yet. He had some struggles last year. Then of course, the suspension again happens in the playoffs, the first round, and arguably cost him that series against Vegas. Not having a second line center. Now that we sort of analyze it even more, that series and what went wrong, I think you can argue that if they had Kadri, their chances of winning that series, I think, go up by at least 50%. So, Nazem's in a big year for him, contract year, and so I expect him to be plenty motivated.
The big move in the offseason, of course, Grubauer left, but they re-upped the captain, Gabriel Lantz. Everybody was on the verge of what's going on? What's going on? How close was it for Gabriel to actually leave the Avalanche, the captain? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that was a saga almost. That that was something that I was a little worried about toward the end there, that this could blow up. But he's back. Do I think 8 years is a little long for him and at his age? Yeah, probably. But I also think it would have been a disaster if they'd lost him for nothing. So he had the leverage. He had the numbers on his side too. He's had very good numbers his whole career. And I think he's got 20 goals or more in 8 seasons. That's only 3 short of the franchise record. People forget that he's had a pretty good career. He just hasn't ring, but I think the Avs had to do it. They probably paid a little more than they wanted to, probably gave him 1 more year than they wanted to, but in the end, the cost of letting him go for nothing was just too great. And I think they had to do it. So there you go.
When you look at the division, who do you think is their biggest competition?
Well, that could change. I still think, I still think the St. Louis Blues are probably the toughest. But I haven't seen Winnipeg play much yet. I need to see some teams play before but offhand right now, I mean, St. Louis added Brandon Saad, unfortunately, from the Avs. He's on their first line now with Ryan O'Reilly. And damn, why am I forgetting his name? The guy who got suspended in the playoffs too.
Oh yes.
Or for COVID. Who? Yeah. We both know it.
Yeah.
David Perron.
Perron.
There you go.
Yep.
See him getting those brain cells kick in eventually with me. So yeah, they got Bennington still. They got Colton Parayko's seems healthy again. Torrey Krug probably will have a better year than he had last year. He wasn't really very good for that team. I think they're still the best. I do worry about Dallas still hanging in the weeds. Veteran team. I think Brian Suter's going to be better than people think for that team.
Mm-hmm.
You got Winnipeg, who's got a lot of talent. Of course, Chicago adds Fleury, so they've got a real goalie now again. It's brutal, man. The only team that should be a layup for anybody is the Arizona Coyotes. Mm-hmm. Thank God they came into the division, right? But I've learned to never say that, write anyone off, because it's such a tough game to play and win. But yeah, it looks like Arizona's at least should be at 2 points for the Avs most nights, and so I think they should. I would pick the Avs to win the division, but I wouldn't go like minus 220. I would be more like, I don't know. I'd probably be more like plus 100 or something.
Yeah. Well, the Avs are highly favored. Some of those teams that you mentioned had peculiar seasons last year with Dallas and St. Louis, and Minnesota came out of nowhere and had a pretty good season. So it will be an interesting division for sure this year. Everybody's going to keep their eyes on it again with the alignment back to normal somewhat. It'll be an interesting year. If anybody out there wants to check out the predictions by the rest of our staff online, go to jablamsports.com. Should be also on this episode page. Season 7, episode 1. Adrian, thank you for joining me.
Okay, no problem.
You can find him on Twitter again at @adater. And that's it for now. In next segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the Pacific Division.